शिव शिव शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो महादेव शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो हर 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो हर 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो जय 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 शंभो जय 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शंभो ओम नमः शिवाय 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 Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah.
Welcome to Satsang. Could everyone please make sure your phones are off or in silent? Either way. It's nice to have an excuse to give yourselves a break from a ringing phone. There's lots of really interesting scientific research around the impact on our nervous systems of having, even if we know I'm not going to answer it, like we know I'm in satsang, or I'm in a movie, or I'm wherever we may be in which we know we shouldn't answer it, or even if it's on silent. But if we see it and we know it's ringing, or we feel it vibrating, this impacts our nervous system. You have to have the luxury of not necessarily being needed for an emergency for some period of your day, even if it's not right now, but some period of your day. An hour, 2 hours a day, to give your nervous system a break. It's actually really, really powerfully important, because things are happening on a subtle level, an energetic level that we're not even aware of. Just to give you one of my favorite studies of that, and then we'll go into the questions. They did a really interesting study where they took people who were coming in to do a very simple cognitive exam, sitting on a computer. Really simple. Might have been basic math, it might have been basic logic. I don't know what was on the exam, but it was really just basic stuff, but you had to use your brain. And they had 2 groups of participants. One group, when they came in, they had to leave their phones at the front door. They could not take the phones with them into the room of the study. The other group was allowed to bring their phones in, but the phones had to be on silent, and they had to be upside down on the desk that you were working on. So you didn't hear it ring. You couldn't see any lights or notifications or anything. It was upside down. No perception of vibration. So there was no way to actually know what was happening on the phone. And yet, the simple presence of the silent upside down phone on the desk drastically and dramatically lowered people's ability to do basic cognitive tasks. So for those of us who feel like we're getting stupider as the years go by, it's not just old age, it's not just menopause, it's not all of that. There actually is a very specific reason. Because of the presence, it's how much of our attention, even if I know it's on silent, I know it's upside down, I know that I can't do anything, there's still a significant percentage of our attention and focus that is hooked into that device. and it keeps us from being able to think properly. So, and this was a study that they've replicated over and over again in many, many, many ways. So both for yourself, also if you have children, if you're a parent or a teacher or a grandparent or a mentor of any sort, never, ever, ever let kids do homework with the phone in the room. Even if it's on silent, even if it's upside down. We now have the research that shows it's going to distract them anyway. So that's the piece on mobile phones. Beginning, as we always do, with one of the questions that came in advance from our family joining us all over the world online. And then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. We've got a mic stand, just go beach my that he'll put in the center. And feel free to come up, share your name, share where you're from, and ask your question. But starting with the one that has come in advance. What to do if we have a career, but we are more into spirituality? And this is asked by Maggie Alt on Instagram. Well, that's great. There's nothing about spirituality that says thou shalt not support thyself. There's nothing about spirituality that says thou shalt stay home all day long and meditate instead of go to the office. Having a job, a career, is actually considered a really core part of almost all of the religions. How we work. You know, in Buddhism, they speak very, very specifically about right livelihood. Yes, you're meant to work, and how you are meant to work. In the Hindu tradition, we have so many scriptures. We have 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita, as well as so many of the stories, the Puranas, that give it to us in example form, telling us this is how you act. This is how you work. This is how you do it. We have so many teachings that remind us. Do it. We even have an entire phase of life in the Hindu tradition focused on your career, called Grihast Ashram. First phase of life, we are a student. Second phase of life is get married, have kids, have a job. As time goes by and people's choices are different, you certainly may decide not to get married. You may decide to get married and not have kids. But traditionally, that phase of life is in which you're a householder. You're doing householder things. And part of that, a big part of that, is you have a job. You support your family. You give back to the community. You give what we call as dan, donation. So spirituality is interlinked with jobs, work. However, how to work and what type of career. There's a couple of different ways that you can do work right, in my opinion. One of them, if you are of the very, very small minority of super fortunate people, your career can be your dharma. Again, very small percent of people does this actually work for. But there are some people for whom they manage to actually make a living doing something that they love, that feels like their highest purpose on planet Earth, that pulls them out of bed in the morning. I know some doctors who are like that. Definitely not all of them, but I know some who are like that. I know some professional writers who are like that, who have made it big enough to actually support themselves as writers, or artists, or singers. I know a fireman who feels like that. But it's very few. I could probably count on two hands the number of people I know who are actually making a living that is enough to support a family without any other external sources of income, by doing something that also feels like their dharma or their purpose. But it's certainly worth praying for. And if you are fortunate enough for that to happen, consider yourself super blessed. However, if that's not the way that it works out for you, that's also fine. It's really fine. You're in the big majority of people. In those cases, what you do is you allow your job to be that which lets you feed your family, donate to your community, send your kids to school, take care of your parents, fulfill these duties that we have. But you make sure that you don't allow your life to get so sucked up by it that you don't have extra time to do what feels like your dharma, your spiritual practice. So you may not necessarily push yourself to work 100 hours a week to make sure that you get the promotion. Because even without the promotion, you're making enough to feed your family. And you'd much rather punch in at 9 and punch out at 5 than be the guy who shows up at 7 and stays till 10 so that hopefully the boss notices and you get the promotion. Because it's of more value to you to have your mornings, to have your evenings, than it is to necessarily try to bring in more money. Because of course, what do we want the money for? Ease, freedom, joy. So if you're in that case, ask yourself, how much do I need? And how much do I have to work in order to earn it? Because just because there is a promotion to be had doesn't mean that you need it. And if in order to get it, it means you can't meditate, you can't pray, you can't do yoga, you can't go to your kid's piano recital, you don't have time to take a walk with your partner, you don't have time to go camping over the weekend, then ask yourself, is it worth it? What am I going to get? Because so many of us waste our lives chasing something that we don't even know exactly what we're chasing it for. And this is why one of my favorite meditative practices is to say to yourself, pick any goal you have. Let's say you have a goal to get a promotion, for example. Okay, no problem. But ask yourself, what is the goal beneath the goal? So the goal is the promotion, or the goal is to get this job. Okay, great. What's the goal beneath the goal? What do you believe that when you get that promotion or that job, you will have? Typically, it's things like more money. Okay. So you get more money. What's the goal beneath the goal? What are you gonna have through that more money? And if you walk this really honestly, and you take a moment and you really go deep, what you find is that what we're really longing for is joy, peace, freedom, belonging, feeling like I am of value, that I am of worth. And this is where our spiritual teaching, our spiritual practice reminds us. That's not something to be earned. That is the truth of who you are. And what if you imagine that the goal beneath the goal is something you are returning to rather than something you're earning? So I am returning to a state of joy, of peace, of connection within me. I don't need the job to make me do that. It is who I am. And then we're able to start getting a lot clearer about our goals. What do I want this for? Well, my kid's going off to college and I don't have enough money to send her. Okay. What can you do to earn enough money to send them? Great, do it. But it doesn't have to take over your life. Do it as many hours as you need to do it so that it gives you what you need. But the last piece is also really important. The last piece is, yes, you can make money doing anything. And again, if your dharma, if your purpose is not something that's lucrative, as for many of us it isn't. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like if your dharma is better, then somebody's going to pay you for it. There's certain individual dharmas that happen to be those that also overlap a career. But then there's lots of dharma that doesn't. And that's also perfect and beautiful. And so you find some other way to bring in enough money to live. But make sure that what you're doing is not out of alignment with your spiritual values and ethics. Otherwise, you will really suffer. If, for example, you get a job, you're a filing clerk, you're a secretary, you're a waiter or waitress, you're pumping gas at a gas station. I mean, something low level, you're a checkout person at a grocery store. Fine, nothing wrong with that. If it gives you the time in the mornings, the evenings, the weekends to do everything else. But if you're working in a company that is exploiting its providers, its employees, Mother Earth, if you're working somewhere where there is a ripple impact of harm, and you know that, you're gonna take that stench home with you. And the dilemma is it becomes something that you can't really wash out. Because you know it, you feel it, and then you feel like you've sold out. And I cannot tell you how many people I have spoken to and shared with and counseled over the years who say, you know, I have this job, it's a great paycheck, it's great business, and yet the suppliers we get from in Africa, in India, in South America, in this, they're being exploited. Our company is cutting corners, and the waste is going into the land or the air or the water. And I hate it. Or my boss, you know, I see, maybe I'm a man, but I see the way that my boss treats all of the women in the company. I see the sexual harassment. I know what he's doing isn't right. Sadly, you don't get to leave that feeling at the office. You clock out. But it impacts you on an energetic level. And it actually prevents you in those other hours, in those mornings, in those evenings, on those weekends. It prevents you from having that deep spiritual experience, because there is a part of you that knows that there is something that you're part of that's wrong. And so it's better. It's better to do something that is lower paid, but guilt-free, than to make somewhat more money but carry home the guilt of knowing that you are part of something that is out of alignment with what you believe in. So so by all means, have a job, have a career. Absolutely. But do it in a way that is in alignment with your spiritual practice. And if anybody ever tells you in business, you have to cheat, lie, steal, step on someone's head to get ahead, A, it is totally false. Totally false. It's a lie. But B, even if it were true, then it's not worth it. Because there is no amount of money or success that you get through hurting others that can wash away or balance out the internal conscious or subconscious or unconscious feeling of knowing that you're doing wrong. Being able to go to sleep at night, to face yourself in the mirror, to face God, is the greatest gift in the world. And there is nothing that money can buy that comes close. Yeah, great question. Other questions? Any question that anyone here has? Yes, of course, in the back. Yeah, afterwards.
Gayatri. My name is Gayatri. I'm from Malaysia. And my question to you is, now that I've spent many days in the ashram, and every time when I do, it's such a beautiful experience, do you have any advice of how I can kind of apply it once I'm back home? And what practices can that be? Because we work, we have our responsibilities. The nature of my work is also, holding space for others. What advice do you have on how I can kind of continue this?
Great question.
Thank you.
And the answer is actually really easy. It seems difficult because here you're in a full day of activities and programs, so it seems like, oh my God, how am I going to bring this home? But you actually can. In the morning, make sure that you have just a few minutes of meditation. You may not have to do a whole fire ceremony. Maybe once a week, maybe Sunday morning, have a yajna at home. It's beautiful. Invite your friends, invite the neighbors. But at least every morning, 10 minutes, 15 minutes if you can. Sit. Do some japa. Do some meditation. Reconnect. Connect with that truth of you. In the evening, have arati. If you can't have a full arati, again, do it once a week at least. But if not, at least have a few minutes of prayer together in the family. And the arati itself, literally the actual arati, if you took away the kirtan, the arati itself is like 3 minutes. So there's no reason you can't do that. Just before dinner, put on the arati. Have a thali in your home temple. Maybe sometimes you have the extended version with kirtan and Hanuman Chalisa and all of that, but at least on a daily basis, have the arati, have one mantra, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Teach the family to pray for all. 3 minutes arati, 1 minute mantra. 4 minutes. But it will change the dynamics. Everybody comes home stressed, busy. In 4 minutes, you've changed the dynamics of the family. Now everybody's going to digest their food much better. So those are 2 pieces. Third, before sleep, again, 10 minutes, 15 if you can. Come back. Come back, just re-anchor, back in meditation. You can bring in Pujya Swamiji's beautiful evening practice of introspection. Look back on the day. Where did I? He speaks about plus points and minus points. As someone who's very hard on herself, and so for whom the idea of minus points from the beginning became really easy, and kind of a way for me to self-flagellate at the end of the day, I think of it more as when I remembered and when I forgot. It's the same thing. It's just a different vocabulary. As, someone like Pujya Swamiji, who doesn't have an internal predisposition to self-flagellation, great, plus points, minus points, it's wonderful. Here was what I did great today. Thank you, God, it was all due to you. Here's what I didn't do so well today. Give me strength. But I just found on a personal level that it was easier for me to think about it as the plus points being moments when I remembered. I remembered who I am. I remembered who others are. I remembered that we were one. And the minus points, instead of telling myself, oh, this was what you did bad today, to just think of it as, oh, that's when I forgot. That's when I forgot. But the intention, it's still the same practice. So you can bring that into your evening practice, just sort of a daily tally. Here's how I'm doing. Here's how it's going. Here's where I can work more. Because you start to notice patterns. I started to notice where I forget. Oh, again I forgot. In this particular circumstance. Oh, again I forgot with that particular person. And you start to notice, And so they're all just, they're ways in, it's insight. The more awareness we have, the clearer we are, the easier it is to move forward. So that's 3 practices. Simple. I've added barely half an hour to your day. The only other piece that I would give you, which I use and it works really, really well, and I've recommended it to countless people, because it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to lose touch. We get it in the morning. We remember in the evening, and we're like, what happened during the day? Like, where'd I go? If you can tie in remembrance to as many things as you can. So, for example, I happen to be a really good water drinker. I love herbal tea. And I'm kind of always drinking something. I also love to eat. I'm a good snacker too. I tie it in. Before every glass of water, before a bite of anything, just a moment. A moment of checking in, reconnecting, close your eyes. It doesn't have to be 5 mantras. At least once a day, or a couple times a day when you have a proper meal, do a full nice prayer inside. But throughout the day, whatever you're going to have, just a moment. And for me, it typically is like this. It's imperceptible to anyone really other than myself. It looks like this. That's it. It's a moment. And I drop in, I connect, it's thank you. It's, oh, yeah, here we are. Because that's all it takes to remember. And so tie it into what you do. If you happen to, drive a lot or be a taxi driver as you're living, well then tie it into every time you turn on the ignition. If you spend a lot of your time writing emails, every time before you hit send, just a moment. It doesn't matter what it is. They're just tools, something that you do a lot. and tie in a moment of remembrance to everything that you do. And then you'll find that you remember all day long, and it literally doesn't take more than a moment. Wonderful. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Yes, please.
Namaste.
Namaste.
What's the best way to, like, when it comes to dealing with challenging personalities that you might meet from day-to-day life, right? Might be like the control freak boss at work, or it might be the needy, graspy types that, you know, aren't aware or don't respect social boundaries, or maybe it's someone who, like, you know, always tries to have the last word, you know, asserting their dominance. Is it beneficial to try and call out kind of these situations and, like, trying to raise awareness?
No.
Or should I just focus on doing my sadhana, my
Yes.
inner work? Is walking away from these kind of situations or people a form of avoidance?
Okay, great question. And it depends. You gave a long list of different types of challenging people. What I would say is a clear rule of thumb. If they are just annoying, obnoxious, rude, problematic in your perception, do the work yourself, and I'll come to what that work is. If they are harming someone else, intervene. I have intervened many times on the streets of a variety of different cities, in shopping centers, in grocery stores, in which it's almost always a parent and a child. And a parent is not just disciplining, but shaming, hurling awful words at a young child, sometimes slapping, sometimes hitting. And I've intervened. It's never appreciated. Nobody has ever said, "Oh, wow, thank you so much for, pulling me out of that moment." But it feels to me like a duty. But you've got to do it with love. So you can't go in shaming the person who's doing it. You don't go in calling them out. You go in actually as an ally to the abuser. So it's not, "Hey, you, get your hands off your kid." It's, "My brother or my sister, it looks like you're having a really hard day. Would you like some water? Can I hold your hands for a moment? Would it be okay with you if we took a few deep breaths together?" It's that. It's going in as an ally to the perpetrator, not calling them out for what they're doing. I have never, ever, I'm 54 years old, I have never seen anyone be called out for bad behavior and respond in any way other than go to hell. The only times that you get them to simply be quiet, it doesn't change them, they're seething inside they're saying go to hell, they're just not saying it out loud, is if the person who's calling them out happens to be a boss, a teacher, like somebody actually with the power to fire them, to send them to the principal's office, to fail them. Then they have enough wherewithal, usually, to stop whatever they're doing lest they get in trouble. But the only way, if you really want to bring about change, the only way is to first become their ally. I've never seen anyone say, "Thank you for telling me what an obnoxious, horrible person I am." It would be nice. I've never seen it happen. Instead, what you get is people who say, go to hell, don't tell me how to live my life, who do you think you are, get out of my business. It doesn't achieve what you're looking for. So if they're harming someone, absolutely intervene, but intervene with as much love as you possibly can. But in the first case, if they just are violating what feel to you like social norms of general kindness, politeness, sort of a dharmic good way of being in communication. That's something that you just work on within yourself. And what's interesting is the people, a core rule in psychology is the people who annoy you the most are the ones who remind you of some aspect of your own personality that you don't want to face. And so the first rule of thumb is, why do I find that particular person and that particular behavior so intolerable? Because it's really interesting to look within. And then practice equanimity. Equanimity, balance. This is core Bhagavad Gita teaching. The yogi, the wise one, is the one who is balanced, who is anchored in pleasure, in pain, in success, in failure, in the ups and downs, with people they like, with people they don't like. It's that. So allow yourself to be unimpacted by that. In the same way that you walk through a supermarket and there's certainly some things that you really like to eat and some things that you really, you would never eat them even if somebody paid you. But it doesn't ruin your mood to walk by things that you wouldn't eat even if someone paid you. Because you understand, okay, this is available, this is also available. I enjoy this, I don't enjoy that. This feels good, that doesn't feel good. But it doesn't upset you. The ultimate goal is to be triggered less and less. And so, everybody's got a personality. For me, on a personal level, one of the ways that I deal with that is I am fascinated, just fascinated by people's bad behavior. Really, the psychologist in me is so interested by it. I'm also, by the way, equally interested in my own bad behavior or my own reaction. So I'll say things to myself like, that is so interesting that that person or that thing triggered you so much. But simultaneously, I'll think, my God, it is so interesting to me that that person is so rude. Like, do they really think that that's an acceptable way to be? And I just allow the psychologist in me to be very curious, very fascinated, and you sort of start to move through the world looking at people as case studies. The highest spiritual way is look at them as soul, look at them as God, look at them as divinity. But when we are finding ourselves stuck in our own individual karmic journey and unable to see this annoying person as source, spirit, divinity, well, at least see them as a psychological case study. And instead of being triggered, just allow yourself to start to wonder, what would make somebody act like that? And it's actually really fascinating when you get into it, because we say things like, well, that's just because they're crazy, or that's just because they're an idiot, or that's just because they are a mean person. But if you ask them why they do it, Nobody says, oh, it's because I'm crazy or because I'm a mean person. Or, oh yeah, that's just because I'm an idiot. I mean, nobody says that. Everybody's got a reason. If somebody said to you about your bad behavior, like, hey, why do you do this? You'd have a reason. Either a reason that justifies it or at least a reason that explains it. And I was always, from childhood, I was always interested in that. I mean, you take mass murderers, take, Charles Manson swords. They have reasons. There were all kinds of fascinating interviews, books written on, like, the minds that think they're doing the right thing by committing mass murder. We know it's wrong. We put them in jail to keep them from harming people. But if you can see them as case studies that are fascinating, rather than being personally triggered by them, it's going to make your spiritual life and your psychological life much richer and much more peaceful. Yeah. Wonderful. Sure, yes. And then you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I'm Ethan from San Francisco. The question I've had, excuse me, is how do you think about finding the balance between maximal impact, giving, teaching, helping, and energy conservation for yourself and your own journey so that you can help others and continue that? So just the balance between those two.
Yeah, great. Both, obviously, but the ultimate goal, and here's what I found. If you realize that you are not the one benefiting others, that you are not the one serving them, that you are not the doer, it doesn't take up nearly as much energy. It's very enervating. It's very tiring to be constantly doing for others, to be constantly the one who has to give and serve. But if you realize, I'm not the doer, I am the vehicle through which doing is happening, then it doesn't take up nearly as much energy. So the way we think about what we're doing, much more so than actually what we're doing, determines whether it's energizing or enervating. If nobody else holds up their end of the bargain and I'm the one who has to do everything, I'm exhausted before I get out of bed every day. But if I realize that God is the doer, I'm just this instrument. I mean, I can't even wake myself up in the morning if there weren't a power, a force that woke me up. I couldn't even digest my breakfast if left to my own devices. If there were not a power in here over which I have zero control and zero involvement other than to try to feed it healthy things, if I had to run my digestion, I couldn't. If I had to run my circulatory system, I couldn't. If I had to even remember to breathe for 5 minutes in a row, I couldn't. I'd die. So you realize, oh my God, I can't even keep my body alive long enough to get out of bed in the morning. Who do I think I am that I'm the one doing this and doing that? So if you can realize you're just an instrument, it's much more freeing. And you let that be the prayer. Oh God, let me be an instrument. It's the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. Make me an instrument of thy grace, of thy mercy. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is hatred, love. Where there is injury, pardon. Like whatever is needed in the moment, let me be the instrument for You know what's needed. You're the manifester. You're the, factory. I'm just the instrument that provides. That you flow through me. So if you can allow your service of others to be that, you'll find that you don't need to do nearly as much refueling. You need a lot fewer warm baths with rose petals because you're not exhausted in that way. That being said, however we serve, replenishing and nourishing ourselves is critical. We have to sleep every night so that our bodies can do what they have to do. In the same way, take some time. Some time every day. Morning, evening. Have them be your bookends. It's what we were just talking about. But it doesn't have to be 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. I mean, occasionally it can be. Have a meditation retreat, by all means. But what you'll find is that once you're connected, it doesn't actually take that long to be rejuvenated. So you'll need less and less of that. Yeah, great. And just behind you.
Hi, I'm David from Denmark. I would like to ask you, what's the best way to help a friend acknowledge and change their own self-destructive behavior?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could really make someone else change? Sadly, we don't actually have that power. But what you can do is you can create the space in which they can have the awareness that they are worthy and valuable. Self-destructive behavior is because I've got a belief in me that I don't actually deserve happiness. That I don't actually deserve love. That I'm unworthy. Maybe I believe it because of something that happened in my family of origin, some way I was raised. Maybe I had a teacher who once told me I was worthless and I would never amount to anything. Whatever it is, I've got some pattern inside, what we call a sanskara. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so there's a lot of self-sabotage, because on a deep level, I believe I'm unworthy. Some of us have other deep psychological issues, again, from family of origin usually, where there's a family that is troubled in a lot of ways, unsuccessful in a lot of ways, not just financially, but in their emotional lives, their relationship lives, their lives in general. You see a lot of people self-sabotage because there's a bit of tribal loyalty. And it sounds weird, but if we were raised in a family of people who were drug addicts, alcoholics, people who were depressed, people who were miserable, people who were negative, people who never made something of themselves, there's very frequently a belief inside that somehow to become happy is to be disloyal to the family I came from. That there's a sense of tribal loyalty to also be miserable, to also be unsuccessful, to also be angry, to also abuse alcohol or drugs. It's a kind of, this is how we do things, situation. And if we haven't done inner work, we find ourselves reenacting patterns that we got in our childhood for no No good reason except this is what I know. And if I do something different, does it mean that my parents were wrong? And that's a hard thing. So the best thing that you can do is create space for him or her to realize that who they are at the core is valuable and worthy, and that they are entitled to health, love, success, joy, peace. Depending on their religion, there may be beautiful scriptural passages, all religions have them, about God's love, about God's mercy, about God's compassion. Find those passages. In the Hindu tradition, we believe that at the very core of who we are, we're divine. That actually is our nature. And that our work is to go back to that nature. If they will let you in a little bit deeper, you could work to find out where and how they adopted the belief that they were not enough, that they were not right. Because sometimes when we can pinpoint who told us this, where it came from, then we have one of those, oh yeah, that was just, my 5th grade teacher going through the divorce. Oh yeah, that was just, my 26-year-old mother doing the best that she could in the midst of her fear and her confusion. And suddenly we're like, oh yeah, that's so not true. I don't have to believe it just because it was told to me by that person at that time. And we start to have freedom to be different. Create the space, love them. If they're open to therapy, if they're open to spiritual work, take them to meditation. Let them touch and experience the fullness of who they are, the divinity of who they are. If they're open to therapy, try to get them in. Whatever you can do. But the most important thing is making them know that you love them, that you are there, that you see in them someone worthy of love, someone worthy of care, someone worthy of success, someone worthy of happiness, and just keep reflecting that back to them. Yeah. Wonderful. We will take all of the rest of the questions tomorrow, as many as we can get to. I hope that you all have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evenings, a beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world online. And so, so, so much love to all of you.
Thank you, Pujya Sadhviji, for your always surprising and delightful wisdom that you share with us daily. Some important things about connection were talked about today, and one of the ways you can stay connected when you're not